Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. Election Day is finally here, and we're kicking off a week of live call-in shows and an Election Day check-in. So how are you feeling today? Are you excited? Are you anxious? Energized, or a little bit of all of the above? We're here to share your thoughts and experiences live. Joining us this hour is WPLN's Rose Gilbert, who's here to report on what she's heard and seen on the ground from voters and the County Election Commission. After that, we'll be joined by a panel of political scientists to weigh in on the polling, campaigns, the state of the electorate, and we've got a special guest, Stacey Huckba. She is created the ugly crying while early voting TikTok. It went viral. We're going to have a call from her coming up a little bit later. But we also want to hear from you. Have you voted? What was your experience like? Did you have problems voting? How are you feeling this election? Are you more anxious than excited, or is it the other way around? Are you, spouse, partner, close friend, voting different on different candidates? How will you handle losing? Or how will you handle winning? To call in and join the conversation, all you have to do is pick up the phone and dial us at 615-760-2000, 615-760-2000, because it's your turn to talk about Election Day. All right, now joining me as promised is WPLN's General Assignment Reporter, Rose Gilbert. Rose, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Khalil.
How's it going? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Most importantly, have you voted?
Yes, I have.
Excellent. I have as well. So
we've got our stickers.
Got our stickers to prove it. Okay, so tell me this. You were out checking out things. How did the polls look while you were there?
Yeah, so I cast my vote at Belmont. So a lot of young faces at the polls, of course, Belmont University. A lot of first-time voters, at the very least, first-time presidential voters. And it was actually pretty cute. There were like a lot of kids who seemed to be turning into a social thing.
Okay.
I saw a lot of people with their boyfriends or girlfriends. Right as I was leaving, there was a big group of kids who all came together, led by a young blonde woman who like kind of had her fist out and was like, "We're going to vote." This was met with some cheers from some of the people who were waiting beyond the vote boundary with their election signs and whatnot. So that was there. And also just once again impressed by the amount of people who take the time to make sure everything runs smoothly. I mean, there's so many people directing you with iPads on where to go, what to do, and keep you from getting lost. So I appreciated them this morning.
That's right. Make sure to thank your election poll workers, as I did as I was leaving, because they, like you said, they are taking their time to do this. All right. Now, you've been in touch with Jeff Roberts, the administrator of elections for Davidson County today. We had him on the show last week. What did he tell you about how the election is going so far?
So far, so good. He said there have not been issues with machines or excessive lines this morning. He did say that when they opened, they had several lines already in place before doors opened at the polls today. And he said that actually in-person voting is up significantly from 2020, which, is maybe not unexpected given the circumstances. Like, there was some anxiety about early voting being down in comparison to 2020, but it looks like those things may have just shifted. It might be up in in-person numbers, down in early voting numbers, which is also kind of what we saw in 2022. So that's not entirely unexpected. But those are the latest numbers on the ground from about 30 minutes ago.
Okay. We'll continue to have updates. And I just want to let everyone know WPLN is on top of all election matters, national, state, and local today. Make sure you go to WPLN.org for updates. That means people like Rose are out there watching the races. So what races are we watching for this election day?
Now, of course, the one that's top of mind nationally is the presidential race. Tennessee is not on the short list for competitive states when it comes to the national presidential race. Historically has, in the past, I think 6 elections, been a pretty convincing Republican win when it came to presidential elections. And there's also some very convincing supermajorities in the House and Senate, State House, State Senate that are not expected to shift. But there are some interesting races to watch.
Okay.
Statewide, of course, we have Gloria Johnson, who's looking to unseat incumbent Marsha Blackburn. And then in the State House, there's Representative Bo Mitchell, who is facing a challenger in District 50 for the first time since 2018. Bo Mitchell being the Democratic incumbent who's facing a Republican council members looking to unseat him. So that could be interesting. There's several state house races with first-time candidates that are I've been keeping an eye on.
Okay.
Shondell Brooks, who's been a gun reform activist since her son was killed in the 2018 Waffle House shooting, become a fixture of the Capitol, kind of joined ranks with Covenant Moms. She's running in District 60, which it was a Democratic seat for Darren Jernigan, and she's running against a former Cameron Sexton aide, Chad Bobo. So we'll kind of see how that race plays out. That's one to watch. And then some other interesting first-time candidates. You've got Allie Phillips, whose story of having to leave the state for a medically necessary abortion has drawn a lot of sympathy and attention. And she's looking to unseat an incumbent, Jeff Burkhart, in District 75. And then we have an immigration rights activist, Luis Mata, who's looking to become the youngest state lawmaker and first Latino elected to statewide office by unseating Representative Mike Sparks in District 49. So those are just some races to keep an eye on. I think Shondell Brooks and Chad Bobo and Bo Mitchell might be particularly interesting.
All right, we'll be getting updates on that right now. As promised, we are going to go to the phones. Here we go. We've got Wes calling us from Goodlettsville. Wes, thank you for calling us, my friend. Happy Election Day. What do you want to share?
You asked how I'm feeling. I'm feeling ignored. And here's why. You mentioned it before. Tennessee is not in play for the presidential election. Why is that? Because of the Electoral College, or how Tennessee chooses to apportion its electoral votes. And so, while the candidates have visited Georgia multiple times, Pennsylvania multiple times, all those states multiple times, sometimes in the same week, sometimes in the same day, Tennessee, I think, has been zero from both, former President Trump and Kamala Harris. So I think we were very close to changing our state law to apportion our votes based on the popular vote. That didn't go anywhere about a decade ago, but we could do that again, and we would be relevant. But honestly, right now, let's be honest, a lot of our votes right now just don't count. So that's why I'm feeling ignored.
Wes, I understand you feeling ignored oftentimes, particularly in modern presidential elections. Candidates decide not to go to all 50 states. They go to the states where they have a chance of winning. Even they ignore the states where they feel strongly about winning. What do you think it'll take to get a future candidate for president to decide to visit all 50 states more than just once? What do you think it'll take to get a candidate to enact on that the next time around we have a presidential election?
Yeah, I was really surprised about this. I thought it was going to, I think, in short, we have to get away from apportioning our a winner-take-all system for states. And actually, it's not going to take a constitutional amendment to do that. I was surprised that all we need to do is actually get a few more states on board, because some states have already passed this, but a few more states on board to agree to apportion their electoral votes based on the popular vote, not just the winner-take-all system in their states. So honestly, I think that's the only way we're going to get presidential candidates to spend time. Here's a prime example. Tim Walz went and actually spent time in Omaha, Nebraska. Nebraska, a very, very red state. However, since Omaha actually, its electoral vote is based upon the congressional district, they are actually in play, because their one electoral vote may actually matter in this election. So that just is a prime example of how we can make ourselves relevant by doing something that actually had conservative and Republican support not that long ago, to apportion our delegates based on the popular vote. I think that's really all we need to do, and it's actually not as big of a leap as I thought but a constitutional amendment would take. I think we can really do this. And ironically, of all things, I learned about this on The Daily Show. But it was interesting. So we're very close to this. We can do it, and we honestly. And I understand the argument about the Electoral College. Basically, then rural areas will be ignored. Well, honestly, right now, let's be honest. Only 7 states are really where the presidential candidates are spending their attention, and they're ignoring pretty much everyone else. So I guess my question would be, how is this better than apportioning? Going back to where all states are in play.
Yeah, I understand that. And thank you so much calling, Wes. And thank you for your passion about our electorate. Rose, I want to toss it to you. What do you think about this concept of, presidential candidates only going to specific states where they're really trying to win the electoral votes there?
Well, I grew up in Kentucky, and that hasn't really been a state anybody was thinking about since Clinton, I guess. It does take some of the wind out of your sails as far as enthusiasm to know that no one's really asking your opinion, right? So I certainly understand that. And I think there has been more and more conversation about the way the Electoral College votes. I know certainly whenever I'm talking to someone who's not American and I'm trying to explain the Electoral College to them, they're like, what? Why does it work that way? So I think that's definitely something I'm seeing more people talk about. And I'm also I'm always interested to hear very specific policy situations, very specific policy adjustments we could make.
Awesome. Excellent. Wes, again, thank you so much for giving us a call. Okay, now we're going to go to Stacy's call. We got Stacy Huckabee calling us. Stacy, thank you so much for calling in. Now, people may have seen you because you created a TikTok video after you early voted that went viral. Let's listen to a clip. Here's that clip of Stacy's call.
I did not have crying in my car on my bingo card today, and it took everything I had to keep myself together while I was inside. Y'all, I just got done early voting. I live in Tennessee, and I've lived in this state for 20 years, and in that 20 years, I early vote all the time. I'm what they call a super voter. Like, people come knock on my door, like, whoever's running, they all go to my house. City commissioner, doesn't matter. I vote all the time. And one of the things I always tell people about early voting in Tennessee is it's so easy. It's in and out, because we have the lowest turnout of voters. It's like 2%. I mean, it's like nobody votes. We're just so gerrymandered that nobody even tries. And we got Gloria Johnson on the ballot this year for Senate, and of course we got Kamala. Y'all, this parking lot is packed. I had to drive around 3 times to get a parking spot, and the lines were all the way around in the library. And I asked the woman when I got there, I was like, is this what it's been like every day? Like, this is like the 6th day of early voting. And she said, oh my God, yes, it's been 7 a.m. There are just lines around the building. People are just in here voting.
This is really awesome. Stacy, thank you so much for giving us a call. Let me ask you this first, Stacy. How does it feel to be a TikTok star? Stacy, are you with us? Here we go. Stacy. That's my bad.
I'm here.
I got to hit the button that allows you to talk. Well, thank you again for calling us. Let me ask you this again. How does it feel to be a TikTok star?
It's kind of crazy. I mean, I've gone a little bit viral on there a couple of times for different things because I've got a big mouth. But when people like Amy Schumer and George Takei and all of those people started reposting it, like, that was the next level of nutty.
Uh-oh. So tell me this. Why is voting so emotional for you this year?
Well, I mean, voting is emotional for me every year because I am a true believer that we are not a red state. We are a non-voting state. And I think that if more people would get out and actually vote, we could really change the supermajority that we have in the House. And I'm not saying that it's bad to be a Republican or good to be a Democrat or anything like that. I just think that the voice of the people are not being heard in states where people are not voting, and that frustrates me. And so when I go out on early, because it really is, I didn't even block my dog up because the library is just 2 minutes from my house. I was like, I'll run over there and run in and be out. And I was blown away by how many people were there. It made me very happy to see people participating.
Why do you think, voter turnout traditionally has been so low here in Tennessee?
I think that people are of the mindset, like I said before, I think they're the mindset of we're a red state and my vote doesn't matter, and so why even bother? Nothing's going to change. And I don't believe that that's true. I tell a lot of my friends all the time, I use Texas as a primary example. Texas was a hardcore blue dog Democratic state for over 100 years. It wasn't until George W. Bush came in and changed that governorship in one election and flipped that state to red. And if that can happen in Texas, it can happen in a red state for Democrats if people would just get out and vote.
I hear that. Another question for you. It's been a couple weeks since you created this wonderful instant viral video. Are you still feeling as emotional as you were then about the election?
I am. I'm going to go later on today and work some polls. I'm going to hold some signs for some of my preferred candidates at different polling locations around town. I'm very involved in especially my local and state elections, because those are the ones that affect my life on a day-to-day basis. Who my city council person is really important to me. I think it should be important to everybody. I think that the presidential election gets almost, not that it's not important because it's deeply important, but I think that those state and local elections, those micro elections, have a bigger impact on our day-to-day lives than really sometimes the presidential election, as far as like navigating your town and your neighborhood and whether your streets are getting fixed or whether your lights are getting fixed or those types of infrastructure issues. And so, yeah, I'm just as emotional. When you played the clip back, I started getting a little bit weepy again, but thinking back to the day when I made it, because I really was just sort of overwhelmed. But I just think it's such an important process. And so many people that live in gerrymandered states or in states where there are supermajorities, I think just feel like it's fait accompli and they don't have a voice. And if they get out and vote, especially in those state and local elections, we could change things.
You know what, Stacey? I applaud your impassioned vigor for us to actually fulfill our civic duty as voters and citizens of the United States. Stacey Huckabee, famous author and inventor of the TikTok viral video, Ugly Crying While Early Voting. Stacey, thank you so much for being with us. Happy Election Day to you.
All right, I'll see you later.
Bye. Okay, Rose, let me ask you this. What should we be expecting tonight? What should we be expecting the polls to look like after the polls close tonight?
Yeah, well, one thing you can expect is that WPLN is going to start live coverage at about 6 p.m., so you can follow here for live updates. It's unclear exactly how long it's going to take, exactly when we're going to know results. They had about 98% of ballots counted by around 11 p.m. in 2020. So we're expecting things to get wrapped up about then, but we don't know how long it might take with mail-ins and whatnot. But we will be keeping everybody updated, and I'll be actually headed out to Broadway to talk to people downtown and seeing how they might be celebrating or staving off anxiety as they wait for results to roll in.
Be sure to bring your boots and a cowgirl hat and get ready. All right, we are going to have special live coverage of the election and all of the state and local races that matter to Middle Tennesseans, like Rose said, is starting on WPLN at 6 o'clock. But this is Nashville, where we'll be broadcasting a live 7 p.m. special edition election night version of the show. Tune in at 7 for the latest news and potentially, maybe, some election results. Rose Gilbert will be around then. Hopefully you are as well. Rose, thanks for being with us on this round. Thanks for your reporting. Have fun today.
I'll do my best. Thanks for having me.
All right. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll have a panel of social scientists join us to break down the state of the campaigns, polling, and more. It's Election Day. Get out there and vote. If you are on the phone with us now, hold. We will get to you. I promise. This is Nashville. We'll be right back.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. It is Election Day. If you haven't voted, we hope that you find your way to a polling location before the polls close so you can participate in our democracy. You see, the foundation of our democracy is all about voting, and today millions of Americans are going to vote and do their part. But for the campaigns for office, they've been going on for a very, 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 very long time now. And as we get to the end of the election cycle, we wanted to hear from some experts, political scientists, about the state of the campaigns and the state of the electorate. So allow me to welcome Dr. Hannibal Hamdalahi. He is the Assistant Dean of the School of Humanities and Behavioral Sciences, Assistant Professor of Political Science, and Director of African American Studies at Fisk University. Dr. Hamdalahi, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having us. And Associate Professor, too.
Excellent. Yes, sir. And Dr. Ian Shapiro is Assistant Professor of Political Science who specializes in American political behavior and political psychology at TSU. Dr. Shapiro, welcome back to This is Nashville.
Happy to be back.
Okay. And we also want to hear from you. So call us to answer one of the following questions or a question of your own. What issue or issues affected your vote the most? How are you going to find out the results? Are you going to a party? Are you going to stay home and watch alone with close friends or family? And what are some of the races that you are watching most closely? You can call us at 615-760-2000 to join the conversation. All right, let's talk about early voting. Tennessee's statewide early voter turnout this year was down about 3% compared to 2020. And even though Davidson and Shelby counties, they saw the most voters with more than 200,000 people turning out, it's been substantially lower this year than in 2020. Davidson had about 13% fewer early voters. Dr. Hamdalahi, what do you think is going on here?
There's a few things going on. I think one of the most important things just has to do with the rash of new voter, I call them voter suppression tactics, but people call it new added voter regulations that were implemented after the 2020 presidential race. We saw a lot of those implemented all throughout the South to sort of suppress the vote, unfortunately. Also, I like what one of the earlier callers had mentioned. We don't really see a lot of investment from the major institutions, major political parties, into states that they consider to be too red, if you're a Democrat, only because they feel that they can spend their money better elsewhere. So we don't really see a lot of people being touched on the ground, people being exposed to a lot of the literature that will help drive some of those votes and things like that. Also, across the state, we don't really see a lot of contested elections the way that we see in many other states. Unfortunately, all of our Senate and House races, they are not contested. They are, there's just one person who's running. And so if you're on the other side, it is pretty much why even bother?
So a lot of people are submitting or abdicating an opportunity to run and challenge an incumbent or someone running unopposed simply because there's this belief that it's a little bit of a waste of time and money?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dr. Shapiro, what do you think about, why do you think that the early voting turnout has been lower?
Sure. When I'm thinking about differences across states of voter turnout, I'm thinking about our decentralized system of voting that we have in the United States. We have 50 sets of election laws, one for each state, and they vary broadly. Over the last 10 years, I've lived in Colorado, Ohio, and now in Tennessee, and they have very different ways of doing voting, and especially ways of doing mail-in voting. When I was in Colorado, they have universal mail voting where you get sent your ballot to your door. I personally liked that because I could Google the names of candidates and look at ballot initiatives while I had coffee and cookies in the morning. When I was in Ohio, they have, I believe now, no excuse absentee where you can request a ballot come to your door. And Tennessee has an absentee ballot system, but there are far fewer reasons that you can give as excuses to get an absentee mail ballot ahead of time. And so structurally, there are simply differences in the accessibility or the convenience of voting by mail. We saw some of those barriers drop down in Tennessee during the 2020 election when every state was adjusting to the COVID of it all. And we have seen a kind of a reversion to the mean since then. And so that could explain some of the differences, certainly between now and 2020 in Tennessee.
I think you just coined a new phrase, the COVID of it all. I could see that as a title of an album or a new television show. All right, we got Rebecca in Bell Buckle, Tennessee, who has been waiting patiently. Rebecca, thank you so much for calling. What would you like to share with us? Rebecca, you with us?
People are voting. I'm most grateful to live in Tennessee. I am on a group thread with my family, so we're all going to be talking about the outcome. And then for Halloween, I dressed up as a patriot, a voter, and tried to encourage people to vote. But my cousin was a former Democratic governor of Kentucky. His name was Happy Chandler. He's also a baseball commissioner. So I'm very political. I have a political room in my family. And this morning I thought, you know what? I'm getting up for this gender reveal that the United States of America is having today. Are we going to have a boy or a girl? So I bought some pink confetti and some pink powder because I'm hoping that Kamala is going to win the race. So I'm going to be shooting that off.
You're going to be shooting that off. Let me tell you this. You've done so much to excite your neighbors, your family, get everyone encouraged about participating in this election. How are your family members looking? Are they looking forward to this as eagerly as you are?
Oh, yes, we're all looking forward to it. So because I came from a political family, we're very aware of what's going on across the country. I was involved in Organizing for Action under Obama So a lot of the people that were involved in that are still boots on the ground for Kamala. And one of my friends that represented Florida called me and asked me if I'd phone bank this week for some Florida calls. So I did that. Always get involved. And I have Republican and Democratic friends. So I am just glad people are involved in the process.
All right. One more question for you. What's on the menu for the watch party?
Margaritas. Margaritas. Just margaritas. Anything else that somebody wants to have, that's what we're going to have. But definitely good old margaritas.
Good old margaritas. I think beer's on the menu here at Nashville Public Radio. Rebecca, thank you so much for giving us a call, and thank you for getting us excited about voting. Okay, have a beautiful day, all right?
You too.
All right. Go vote, everybody. That's right. Listen to Rebecca and go vote. Now, one more question about early voting. About 80 million people have already voted early here in the country. That's the highest non-pandemic early voting total ever. I'd like to hear from both of you. You first, Dr. Shapiro. Do you have an essence or a sense of who's choosing to vote early and why they're doing that?
Sure. So our caller, Rebecca, actually gave us a very good hint or lead about why some individuals are choosing to get out early. It's because they're being reminded to, taken to the polls with someone. They're being given the opportunity by their social network to actually be involved in their community. So social resources are really important. Resources generally are important in understanding who votes and who's going to be a habitual early voter. So it tends to be a resource story and also a kind of social motivation story for a lot of individuals.
All right, Dr. Hamdalahi.
Yes, I think that one of the reasons that we're seeing a larger turnout this year is, there's just a big threat to the integrity of some people's vote. And unfortunately, it could be fortunately, a lot of times when we see a lot of threats to people's votes, it actually has the reverse effect. It makes people go out and vote in even larger numbers earlier. And so I think that what we're seeing is a function of that. People want to go ahead, vote early, and if there's any issues with their vote, they want to have the time to make sure that they get those things taken care of.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekulona. It's Election Day, and we're talking this hour about the election. Have you voted yet? Are you as informed as you'd like to be? How are you feeling about this election? Please join the conversation and call us 615-760-2000. That's 615-760-2000. All right, now throughout early voting, WPLN reporters have been on the ground talking to voters about their experiences and their decisions. In this clip, we hear from 4 who shared which issues shaped their decisions at the ballot box.
One of the biggest things that I care about is making sure that public schools have the funding and the participation and support from the community that they deserve. And with the school choice issues that are happening right now and the push for charter schools, that's sucking money away from public school opportunities for kids who really need that chance. That's something I'm really passionate about, That's why I do my job. And so voting for candidates who support that, voting for candidates who are invested in those ideals, that really, really matters to me.
I would say the biggest issues that I'm worried about are economy and foreign policy.
One of my most important issues is climate change. And in the Biden administration, they have actually taken action to, fix climate change and put legislation forward for that. And I think that she will continue to do that and continue to put legislation forward for that. I know Trump wasn't going to do that because he doesn't believe in it. So that's, I think, the biggest reason.
Hell yeah. I voted for Donald J. Trump. Let's go, baby. I voted for him last time, and I felt like he should have won, and I wanted to make sure that I got out this time and voted for sure. And everyone should vote. I would like to see our country get back on track in terms of supporting American businesses and the American people. That's what I would like to see. And some civic pride. America's an awesome place. We should celebrate it.
All right, let me ask you this, gentlemen. What do you think the key issues that are most influencing voters this election? Dr. Hamdalahi?
I actually think that it's really the issue of democracy itself. It seems to be on the ballot this time around. People feel as if they don't have a choice. We saw a lot of decisions handed down by the Supreme Court that, in a lot of people's mind, it actually took choices and took freedoms and took liberties away from them. And so when it comes to public funding, when it comes to libraries and book bans and things like that, so I really think that people are very afraid of where the country is. And I think democracy itself is on the line, whether we're going to continue to allow the people to have a choice, have a chance to sort of make the laws that they want, or is it going to go the other way and we allow other people to do that for us?
All right. Thank you for that. We're going to go to a call. We got John in the Nations. John, you've been waiting patiently, my friend. Thank you so much for waiting. What would you like to share with us?
I'd like to share, just pile on a handful of other points and then make a point beyond this election. And I agree that we are a low voter state. I'm 46. I grew up here, and I, when I tell people all the time that in the 80s, you often didn't know the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. I want to share two things, having come from an outer rural suburb, namely Sumner. I have a family member who's been a school teacher their entire adult life, and they've never voted. And during the previous governor's election, I called them, the one time I've ever called, to say, hey, you really got to pay attention to what's going on with this voucher program that they're just pushing, and nobody wants, not even the Republicans want it. And I just called to talk and say, you guys talk about this stuff. And they were like, yeah, we talk. And I was like, well, what's the conclusion, the consensus you come to? And they said, well, we really just don't feel like that it's just going to change very much. And this is sort of parallel to the conversation I hear from a lot of people, especially from where I'm from, which is, I'm using quote fingers here, I'm just not that political. And it breaks my heart because my family member works their butt off and has dedicated their lives to it, and they've got a legislature that is not making their life any easier. So I'll add one other thing that's geographically relevant to this conversation, especially the transit vote going on. The previous referendum years back, there was a lot of participation from outside of Metro to partner with the plan to get sort of, let's call it a spinal column, a nervous system centralized here in Davidson, so that all the outer counties could have connections to it. Well, my home of Sumner was one of the ones that did that, and that really surprised me. So this isn't just some conversation we're having down here. We've got a broader conversation and dialogue to be had, and I love this show so much, and I think it's great to have people live having these conversations, and it's way better than just an open forum on a social media page somewhere where it's anything goes. It's curated, it's focused, it's good, and the best part of it being curated is you get respectful, civil people from different points of views talking about this stuff. So I'll just leave you with this. Keep up the good work, but hey, let's take it outside of downtown. Let's engage all the people that pick up 90.3 and continue the conversation.
Thank you so much for that, John. Really appreciate that. We are going to work to bring it to all of Middle Tennessee. Let me ask you this question real quick. After this election is over, we've got, look, I'm just going to speak the truth as it is. We'll keep the main thing, as the kids say. After the election is over, half of the country is going to be upset. Half of the country is going to be happy, regardless of who wins. What do we have to do to be able to communicate with each other post-2024 election as Americans about which direction we want the country to go in? Because if you ask me personally, this is my personal view, Americans, when it comes to our politics, we lost the concept of compromise. Suddenly, that is the dangerous four-letter word, longer than four letters, but we don't want to speak that word at all when it comes to our political situation. What can we do, in your mind, as a citizen who is very involved and very active and passionate about our politics and our democracy? What can we do to better communicate with each other so we can come to an environment of compromise?
Khalil, I tell people all the time, simply pop the bubble. Talk. Don't put yourself in that pocket of, oh, this is going to be awkward. It's silly. And the more we have these devices and the more we have these apps and things, in a way, it really puts us in our own little bubbles. And that's just not how it used to be. I mean, people were showing up in person and having these conversations, wherever, at the barbershop or at church, and those conversations still happen, but they are more segmented than they used to be. So people just got to defy that awkwardness. When you're standing in line somewhere, have a conversation with somebody. Stop staring at your phone.
Mm-hmm. Take it back to the old school. John,
sure.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you for calling, my friend, and have a happy election day, all right?
All right, keep the faith. Thanks, Khalil.
Yes, sir. We will do that. Okay, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to get to your calls. Be like John. Call us up. We're going to get to your calls, and we're going to get analysis from our experts on this Election Day 2024. In order to be like John and to be a part of the conversation, call us at 615-760-2000. We'll be right back. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. Welcome back to our first live broadcast on Election Day 2024. Yes, you heard me right. This is our first live broadcast because we'll be back at 7 p.m. with more insight, analysis, and reporting on the national, state, and local races that are happening this Election Day. All right, that's at 7 p.m., but right now, what's going on is just as important. We're still joined by our guests, Dr. Hannibal Hamdalahi. He is of Fisk University, and Dr. Ian Shapiro of TSU. Gentlemen, thank you both again for being with us. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. And we've also opened up the phone lines to hear from you, so call us at 615-760-2000 and make your voice heard. The line is popping up. A lot of callers, we're going to get to them. 615-760-2000. All right, but gentlemen, I want to ask you this. A lot of questions are about polling. People are excited about the polls. People are skeptical of the polls. When can we trust the results of a poll, and when should we be skeptical about a poll? Dr. Shapiro, you're smiling. I'll let you answer first.
Yes. So you should trust the results of the poll when the pollsters are transparent about their process. Polls are always going to have some amount of error because by definition, you are trying to understand a population from a much smaller portion of that population. We collect samples of that population. If you want to look for ways that you can avoid error in polling, if you're looking at the polling methodology, see what steps they took to avoid selection effects and to ensure a random sample that everyone in the population of interest had an equal probability of being chosen. Look at avoidance of social desirability bias. Look at how the questions are asked and the wording, that they're not trying to lead people one way or the other or ask about particularly sensitive topics that an individual might want to hide from a pollster. And also look at whether the question wordings are advancing or trying to mitigate expressive responding. We want sincere and not purely subjective or emotional responses to questions that might flare up. And so polls have error. This is true. And when you're trying to measure who's going to win an election, that error can look astronomical in size. But polls in general have had less error over time, and it's because we know the sources of those errors and are able to account for them.
All right, now, Dr. Hamdalahi, tell me this. Can the mechanism of our democracy, can it be set up to save us from any unfounded accusations of voter fraud that we've been subjected to for the past few weeks and months now?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. I think that Congress, right after President Biden was elected, they actually got together and they passed some things to ensure that the integrity of the entire electoral system met some safeguards, was upheld. For instance, as opposed to allowing the state legislatures to have the opportunity to decide whether they're going to certify and things like that. Now it's up to the governors in those states and things like that. But I would also say that so there are some polls such as Real Clear Politics that actually averages polls. So they take a bunch of polls, some of the most important, well-known polls out there, and they give you an average of those polls. And so if you're sort of like me, I don't like to look at one poll. I don't like to look at two polls, but rather I like to look at where the average of those polls are. They kind of move, and they update. The website tries to update those regularly, and then traditional outlets such as maybe the Cook Political Report, they usually do a good job of making sure that their expert pollers are using everything they can to make sure that the integrity is upheld.
All right. We're going to get to the phones because they are blowing up. Mary in Clarksville. Mary, thank you for patiently waiting. What would you like to share with us?
Well, I just want to make sure that everybody knows about the nonpartisan voter protection hotline. Pardon me. But anyway, you can call 1-866 our vote. If you have any problems at the poll, make sure that you ask for a provisional ballot if there's some sort of issue, and they're going to let you vote if the poll is closed, as long as you're in line before 7 p.m. So stay in line, okay?
We'll make sure they do. I mean, can you give us that number one more time, Mary?
Yes, 1-866 our vote, and it's nonpartisan, and they have trained volunteers and lawyers in case you have any kind of problem when you go to cast your ballot. You can even report issues at a polling location. Maybe somebody's doing some electioneering they're not supposed to do. All sorts of things.
Excellent. Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much for giving us this valuable resource that is intended to protect all voters. Thank you so much. Happy Election Day to you, okay?
You too. Thank you.
Bye. All right. We are moving on. We got Francis, a special caller. Francis in Nashville. Francis, you are on the line. Francis, thank you for calling. What do you share with us?
I want Kamala Harris to win for women's rights.
You want Vice President Kamala Harris to win for women's rights? That's so awesome. But let me say, Francis, you sound a little bit too young to vote, my friend. When are you planning? How old are you now?
9.
You're 9 years old. So pretty soon, 9 years, you're going to be casting a vote. Are you excited to cast your first vote in 9 years?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you go with one of your parents as they went to cast their vote this year?
Yes.
You did? Yeah. What makes you most excited about this election?
A woman to be president.
Yes, that would be unprecedented and historic in our country. Let me ask you this final question before I get to calls. Did you ask your folks to let you stay up late tonight to see the election results?
No.
No? Hey.
But
if you ask them, tell them Khalil's got your back and they should let you do it.
okay.
Okay, perfect. Francis, thank you so much for calling. Will you maybe call us back in 9 years when you vote for the first time?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Francis. Have a great day, okay?
Okay.
All right. Bye. All right. We've got future voters, people who are already looking to vote 9 years in the future. So any Tennessean who hasn't voted, Francis has got you beat. Don't let Francis beat you down. All right. We're moving on to Brenda in Nolensville. Brenda, thank you so much for calling. What would you like to share with us?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm a Texas transplant also. And having worked in a couple of governors' tenures, I've really seen, and I'm 73, and I've seen a lot. So one of the things that The Atlantic, the first time ever that The Atlantic published about 18, 20 pages was on Texas, I guess, their procedure on doing certain things, and one is suppressing the vote. And I'm following up on Stacy on how to get people out and make their votes count. And one of the things that one of the first steps that Texas did in suppressing the vote was in gerrymandering. And the title of the article was "So Goes Texas, So Goes America." So it really was one of the first models for suppressing the vote. And so one of the things that they did, and what I would encourage people to do, is to make sure that the people who are setting the boundaries, the areas for each precinct, are doing the right thing. Because what we saw in Texas that made it really hard to vote for a Democratic candidate, well, both, but especially Democrat candidate, was to change the area of that precinct.
Yes.
Like, for example, if a university, a major university in a smaller town, they had more, there was more activity and there was more younger vote who tended to vote for Democrats. And so when
They switched some things up. Brenda, I really appreciate you calling and adding this sentiment. Really, thank you so much. I've got some other calls I've got to move on to, but I think we get the message.
Just one thing.
Yes,
one
ma'am.
thing that here that I haven't seen before is county commissioners don't have to declare whether they're Democrat or Republican. So, so you don't know what the direction is on suppressing the vote. So anyway, that's my thought. Make sure you're voting for county commissioners.
Make sure you're voting for everybody. Thank you so much, Brenda. Really appreciate your call. We're going to move to Jody and Donaldson. Jody, we have you on the line now. Please make it brief. We only have a couple minutes left and a bunch of calls to get to.
I just wanted to touch on the fact. Can you hear me, by the way? I'm sorry.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I just wanted to touch on the fact that this year, the last 10 years, actually, I have been really concerned that tens of millions of people in this country seem to be concerned about all sorts of issues, but they've forgotten about character. They've forgotten that you want to vote for someone who is, you hope, at least maybe a little better than what you would see in a lot of politicians, maybe a little better than ourselves, maybe someone who has aspirations for everyone and not just the aspiration to be powerful. I've just watched with horror these last 10 years while a certain person has lied and spoiled and just made people it's brought out the worst in so many tens of millions of people, and it's just very frightening and disturbing and sad to me. And I just sort of wanted to touch on that, maybe get everybody to think about, hey, maybe look at who is giving you a message of hope and who is giving you a message of fear.
I understand that, and I really appreciate you calling to remind us politically and in every way we have to be good to each other. I really appreciate that, Jody. Thank you so much. Have a great day, okay?
Thank you.
All right, and we're going to go to Jerry. Jerry, it seems like you may have some similar sentiments to Jody. What do you want to share with us, my friend?
Hey, Jerry Maynard, former council member at large at Davidson County. I've been working 30 years. My question to you and the panelists, has a standard now that we have no guardrails of what's being said about fellow Americans. This is the nastiest, meanest campaign. It used to be if you had something negative, you would use subtleties. If you wanted race bait, it would be subtle. It would not be, these are literally that they're treasonous or just blatant racism, like the island is a garbage or island garbage. Do you think we could put the genie back in the bottle and put guardrails up in the language that we use? Because I do know that the nastier the campaigns are, the less likely that younger voters and infrequent voters will vote. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jerry. I really appreciate that. I'm going to respond to that. Hopefully, we can come to a place where we can respect each other as human beings and as fellow citizens of the United States of America. There's a lot we have to work on. I've got one last call, a minute and a half left for Amy in Dixon. Amy, thank you so much for holding. What would you like to share with us?
Well, as an excited mom, I got to take my son to vote for the very first time this year. Set our alarms and got up early and did it. I was so excited to take him. And we were discussing is that I hope you understand how important it is that you vote, that you have the right to vote. And he said, of course I have the right to vote. I'm a white man. We've always had the right to vote. And it just really struck me that he understood this is where we're at, that people who are not white and male are feeling so disenfranchised that even he recognizes he's got a privilege. And I really, really am afraid that the younger generation that doesn't look like him is feeling like they're being ignored in the legislature. They're being ignored in election cycles. So I don't know. I guess it's a statement on the state that we're at. And I'm also just really proud of him right now.
That's right. You should be proud of him. Thank you so much for calling us and sharing that wonderful sentiment that your son expressed with us. Really appreciate it. Have a beautiful day, Amy, okay?
Me too.
All right. Okay, really quick. Well, I was going to leave time for both of our guests to summarize everything, but the music is telling me that's it for the 12 o'clock hour. I want to thank our guests, Dr. Hannibal Hamdalahi. He is of Fisk University, and Dr. Ian Shapiro of TSU. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your expertise. And stay close to your phones for the next couple of days, because I have a feeling maybe we may be giving you a call for help.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, and thanks to you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville as a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced by Mary Mancini and Catherine Ceces. It was directed by Tasha A.F. Lemley. Our technical director and board operator is Liv Lombardi. Char Daston handled the phones. Thank you so much. The masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. Special thanks to everyone who called in and everyone who voted today or voted early. It is our fundamental duty as Americans. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. And the conversation doesn't end here. Tweet us, find us on Instagram. You can call up the show and leave a message at 615-751-2500. Don't forget, we will be live with a special election night episode tonight at 7 p.m. Tune in to hear some of the results and some analysis. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil Ekulona. We'll see you later on this evening, everyone, and be good to each other.